An elderly man, hunched and weathered by time, walked into a bustling city bank, holding a small, worn sack. He stood at the center of the room and announced in a calm voice, "This bank is mine." The crowd in the bank erupted in laughter, dismissing him as just another confused old man. Security immediately advanced to escort him out. But when the man opened the sack, everything changed. Before we continue, please take a moment to like and subscribe. It really helps us share more stories like this. The city of Willowbrook was an ordinary place, where everything seemed to move in a predictable rhythm. But that day, something extraordinary was about to unfold. The heavy doors of the First National Bank creaked open, and in walked an old man, his face mostly hidden under the brim of a frayed cap. His clothes were ragged, and he carried a small sack slung over his shoulder, which looked heavy for his frail body. The few customers in the lobby barely noticed him, and the bank employees went on with their usual work, exchanging polite nods. The man's appearance didn't stand out. He seemed like someone who might ask for a few coins, not the owner of the building. When the old man spoke, however, his words were anything but ordinary. "This bank belongs to me," he said in a voice that rang clear despite his frailty. For a moment there was silence, followed by a ripple of laughter. A few chuckles echoed through the room, while the head security guard, a tall man named Marcus, took a step forward, ready to gently escort the old man out. "Sir, I think you're confused," Marcus said with a slight smile. "Maybe it's time we sit you down and call someone for help." The old man stood still, unfazed. He shifted the sack on his shoulder and let it drop to the marble floor with a heavy thud that cut through the laughter like a knife. The sound seemed to bring a moment of stillness to the room. "I am not confused," he said calmly. "This bank is mine." The bank manager, Gregory, a middle-aged man who had dealt with all kinds of situations over the years, stepped forward. "Sir," he said gently, "we appreciate your concern, but I'm afraid you are mistaken. This bank has been in operation for many years. Do you have an account here?" The old man didn't answer right away. He simply looked around the room, his eyes glimmering with something beyond exhaustion. "Account?" he repeated, his voice low. "I built this bank." A soft laugh escaped from a teller, followed by a few more, but the old man didn't seem to notice. He bent down, reaching into the sack, and when he pulled it open, the room fell silent. Bundles of faded banknotes tumbled out, old and worn, bearing the logo of First National Bank. Except these notes were from decades ago, long before the modern logo was ever used. They were tied together with worn string, and beside them lay an ancient ledger, its leather cover cracked and brittle. Gregory, initially skeptical, walked over and cautiously picked up the ledger. His face went pale as he flipped through the fragile pages. This can't be," Gregory whispered, looking up at the old man with disbelief. "These notes, they're real." The old man nodded slowly. "I started this bank," he said, his voice steady. "I ran it for years until they took it from me." "Who?" Gregory asked, still stunned. "My partner," the man said, his voice trembling with suppressed anger. "A man named Edward Finch. We built this bank together, but greed turned him into something else. He convinced the board that I was unfit to lead, And just like that, they took it from me. The room was now silent, and the employees who had once chuckled nervously were now staring at the old man, trying to understand what was happening. Marcus, the security guard, stood frozen, his hand twitching near his belt, as though unsure whether to take action or wait. Gregory stepped forward again, still unsure, but now fully curious. "You say you built this bank in the 1940s? He asked, his voice shaking. The old man's eyes softened. "I did, with my own 2 hands. I was there when it all started." Gregory, his mind racing, opened the ledger to a page where the signatures of the original founders were recorded. His hands trembled as he read the name. "Benjamin Hardy," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "That's me," the old man said, nodding. "Impossible," Gregory breathed. "Benjamin Hardy would be over 100 years old now. How is this possible?" The old man's eyes gleamed with a quiet strength. "I was erased," he said softly. "But I am still here, and I'm here to take back what's mine." Gregory stood in disbelief, holding the ledger as the weight of the moment pressed upon him. This wasn't just a confused old man with a wild story. This was the true owner of First National Bank, a man who had been wronged and forgotten by history. The old man didn't say much more. Instead, he pulled out a stack of legal papers from the sack, yellowed and faded by time, but still bearing the official stamps and signatures that proved his ownership. Gregory took the papers hesitantly, his eyes scanning them, and then his face turned ashen. "These documents, they prove that you never sold the bank," he whispered. The realization dawned on him. The bank. It was stolen. A murmur spread through the room. The employees, still processing the gravity of the situation, looked at each other uncertainly. The old man, Benjamin Hardy, stood still, waiting for them to understand. Gregory's voice was barely above a whisper. "We have to get this to the authorities. This is huge." Benjamin Hardy gave a slight nod. "I have waited a long time for this day," he said quietly. "I never wanted to take it all back. I only wanted what was rightfully mine." He took a final look around the bank, his gaze sweeping over the polished floors and gleaming chandeliers. It had all been built on his dreams, his hard work, and his trust, only to be stolen from him by greed and betrayal. As he turned to leave, the young tellers who had once mocked him now quietly stepped forward, placing the old banknotes on the counter as a silent gesture of support. Gregory, still in disbelief, watched them, his thoughts racing. The old man didn't look back as he exited the bank, but for the first time in years, he felt the weight of justice on his side. He had fought for so long, and now the truth had finally come to light. As Benjamin Hardy walked out into the fading light of the evening, he knew that his fight wasn't over, but he had finally taken the first step to reclaiming what was his. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice matters, and together we can continue uncovering the hidden truths of history.